First, the Kremlin has today accused US President Joe Biden of escalating the war in Ukraine in the wake of his decision to allow Kyiv to use long-range American-made missiles deep inside of Russia. A Russian MP has said the green light means the US is now directly involved in the conflict. The news came as Russian ballistic missiles hit the city of Sumy, killing 11 people, among them 2 children. In the latest Russian attack today, a missile hit an apartment block in Odessa. 8 people there have been killed as well. Morgan Eyre has our first report.
Ukraine has been lobbying Washington for years to be able to use American weapons to strike further inside Russia. Finally, it seems the US has given Kyiv a green light. The New York Times and other media report that information based on comments from US officials. The missiles are known as the Army Tactical Missile Systems, or ATACMS. They have a maximum range of 300 kilometres and can reach further into Russian territory than other weapons in the Ukrainian arsenal. American officials suggest it's likely they will be used in Russia's Kursk region. This would bolster Ukraine against Russian and North Korean troops. President Vladimir Putin previously said that such a step would mean the direct involvement of NATO countries in the war. President Volodymyr Zelensky did not confirm nor deny they were granted approval for these long-range missiles to strike inside Russia.
Today, there's a lot of talk in the media about us receiving permission for respective actions. But strikes are not carried out with words. Such things are not announced. Missiles will speak for themselves. They certainly will.
It's been suggested by experts and the media that Moscow will have already begun moving some of its resources outside of the Kursk region in anticipation of the decision. Some experts believe while it will aid Kyiv, it's not going to tilt the balance significantly.
I think this will certainly help the Ukrainians, but I don't think it's going to be decisive for the direction of the war. My guess is that the Biden administration wants Putin and he wants the North Koreans to understand that there are costs to escalation.
It comes too as Russian forces advance steadily in the east of Ukraine, and with Donald Trump's return to the White House raising fears of the future of US support for Kyiv.
Well, let's bring you some more analysis on this story now and speak live to Philip Ingram. He's a journalist that specialises in security, and he's a former British military intelligence officer as well. Good to talk to you today.
Good afternoon.
Good afternoon. Look, first of all, what targets in Russia is Ukraine likely to be able to hit as a result of this green light from Washington?
Well, these weapons will allow Ukraine to hit targets much deeper into Russia, and there will be logistic concentrations, so ammunition dumps. There will be concentrations of troops, so training areas and accommodation where they're starting to come together to prepare to move forward to the front line. Concentrations of military vehicles, military equipments, including repair sites, which they want as close to the front line as possible, but far enough back that Ukrainian artillery can't currently hit them. And of course, if there are any airfields and other areas that are within range, they'll be hit. But also some of the sites that are being used to launch the Shahad 136 drone attacks that we're seeing being launched against Ukrainian critical infrastructure, especially their power infrastructure. So this will impact the Russians in quite a way. But as your previous commentator said, it's not going to be completely decisive.
Volodymyr Zelensky has been pushing for this green light for months now. Do you think this can tangibly make an impact for Ukraine on the battlefield? Because we have seen, haven't we, over the course of several months, Russia slowly making progress and Ukraine appearing increasingly outgunned. So is this something that really could turn things around?
It will help. Anything that increases the range that Russian capability can be attacked at is going to help enormously. The minute the Russians can have their vehicle repair sites very, very close to the front line, outside of Ukrainian artillery range, but knowing that they're in safe places because the international community is not allowing the Ukrainians to use long-range weapons. That has now changed, and that will have an impact on the battlefield. But it's bringing all of these together. So I hope this is just the first step, and then the the authorization for the French Scalp, which is the British Storm Shadow missile that's made jointly by France and the UK, authorization for that to be used against targets inside Russia. And by bringing all of these together, that will then have a more decisive impact than one weapon system alone.
I suppose the big question, though, today is Russia's response. There's already been a suggestion in Moscow that this is viewed there as the United States becoming a direct participant in the war. How serious is that?
Well, as we've seen with all of the red lines that there have been, every time they're crossed, Vladimir Putin does nothing. You will get more rhetoric coming out. This is the typical sort of rhetoric that he'll put out. We might see a bit of nuclear threatening and saber rattling. We might see an increase in the attacks into Ukraine itself with drones and missiles for a short period of time until Russia runs out of ammunition. But Putin really doesn't know how to respond to this, and that's a big part of his problem. Putin is suffering, so the more we can increase that suffering, the more he's on the back foot, and the Ukrainians can get the initiative back again. They've lost it tactically on the front line, but they still retain it at the operational level. And conflicts are not always won with tactical battles.
And your thoughts then on whether this might encourage countries in Europe, the United Kingdom, to follow Washington's lead now?
Well, I think it should do. I think it's been the Americans that have been holding certainly the UK and France back from allowing the Storm Shadow / Scalp missile from being used, because there's American guidance systems that are needed in it. I do hope it will allow the Germans to authorise the use of the Taurus missile, but then German domestic politics has just been thrown into difficulty with the virtual collapse of the government. So that may delay any decisions that are there. And other European nations, I think, will hopefully follow suit.
Philip Ingram talking to us today live from London. Thank you very much indeed.
Thank you.